Hello, hello everyone. So today
Hi.
is super special episode, and I know people are waiting for us. And I want to introduce Shazia and Shreya in Bangla because I know it's my mother language, and I'm very comfortable to talk about someone in my own language. So give me 1 minute, guys. যারা দেখছেন আমি খুবই খুশি আজকে আজকে আমাদের সাথে অসম্ভব গুণী একজন প্রোডাকশন ডিজাইনার রাইটার ডিরেক্টর সাজিয়া ইকবাল এবং শ্রেয়া আমার সাথে আছে কো হোস্ট করতে। তো আপনারা যারা শুনছেন আজকের সেশন অসম্ভব ইন্টারেস্টিং হবে এবং শেষ ভাগে হুমায়রা বিলকিস আমাদের বাংলাদেশের একজন খুবই জনপ্রিয় ব্রিলিয়ান্ট ডকুমেন্টারি ফিল্ম মেকার তিনি জয়েন করবেন। So I'm super excited today, and Sajia, thank you so much. You are on our show, and this show is I think one of the desired one for the audience, and we
Thank
have
you.
done a couple of more. And thank you personally because you know you did a great work behind to make it happen. And I have a really good friendship with Sajia, so maybe we will talk a little bit more enthusiastically today. And
Yes.
yeah. So yeah, Sajia, welcome.
Hi. Thank you for inviting me, Arif. I am very glad to be here and to talk about cinema, to talk about art, production design, my journey through all of that. I have been working for 14th, this is my 14th year in the industry. And yeah, I would love to take everyone on my journey, what's been till now. And if there are any questions like now during the show, after that, I'm here to answer that. And the pleasure
Yep.
is all mine.
By the way, to the audience, there was no plan to match my shirt color and
Yes,
Shazia's.
the yellow
it's
dress coincidentally happened.
it's
And I feel
definitely
left
happened.
out.
Yeah, Shreya should have followed that.
No, there is something very much needed to do the balance. So you're the balance.
Oh, wow.
Anyway, so Shazia and Shreya, they're both from India, but they're not Indian. They're global, and we are sharing our knowledge through our craft and filmmaking, storytelling, and everything. So Shreya, you want to start about the production design thing from
Yeah,
Shazia?
definitely. I would like to
Yep,
just
go ahead.
ask a very general question, which I ask to a lot of artists, is to understand where did this artist Kida, this came in your life? You've done architecture, so like just take us through your journey of upbringing, education, and then what was that inciting incident in your life where all of this just happened?
So, well, upbringing, should I start with that and then
Yeah,
arrive like at a more
yeah,
linear level?
yeah.
So, my parents are from Patna and they migrated in the 80s. So, we came to Bombay in the 80s. And my upbringing has been in a small northern suburb of Bombay. And my parents were migrants, we are Muslims, so it was, we were, a little foreign in the space that I have grown up in. So there was no exposure to art or books or anything from my childhood because we came from a very different background, and there was so much struggle of everyday life that my parents were struggling just to raise us. And there was not really like, I have not been one of those fortunate people who grew up in between a lot of books and who have, like, surrounded by art. Even though my father was from the film industry. I don't know if you guys know Ramayan, which was this
Yeah,
very popular
Yeah.
mythology serial. So my father worked on that. He used to so earlier in the film industry, there wouldn't be very assigned roles. It would be more like, the assistant to the director would be the assistant editor, and he would also edit. He would also do casting. He would also write dialogues. So my father was the assistant to the director that time. So he's the one who's cast Ram and Sita, by the way.
yeah.
So
Wow.
Wow.
yeah, so I have sort of grown up on film set like that, but there was no intention of joining the film industry because my father also left it like early in the like mid 90s or something. He left it, and of course he never became anything prolific. He wanted to, but the success rate of anyone becoming something in the industry is very, very like a very minute percentage. So I wanted to become an astronaut, like every
Okay.
child wants to
Astronaut.
become. Yeah. And I wanted to, study aeronautic design and engineering. And I
Wow.
did not get like those kind of marks because you need really, you need like above 95% in your 12th standard here to get into aeronautics. And there's only one college in India that time in Chennai, and my family was like, a little conservative. Sending girls somewhere at that time was like not a possibility. So, well, that was the dream to become an astronaut got crushed. But my brother was studying civil engineering. So he told me that, you know what, it's civil engineering is like shit. There's nothing in it. It's not creative or anything. But there's a lot of respect for architects who come on site and things like that. So why don't you try? And when my brother told me about architecture, was probably the first time I had even heard about, okay, there are architects and they design buildings and things like
Yeah.
that. And I just jumped into it like a blind date. It was just, okay, let's do architecture. It was that sort of thing because you're so clueless when you're growing up, right? And you just become, and you want to become something. Then there are 10,000 people, at least in Indian society, there are 10,000 people who will tell you should become a doctor. And like Indian society hasn't gone beyond doctor and engineer, actually,
Yes.
and an MBA. Only these three fields. So some of my relatives wanted me to become an engineer, some my parents wanted me to become a doctor. So anyway, architecture is where I landed up. And I had no
Mm.
idea about design, color, composition, absolutely nothing. Learned everything in architecture, which was actually a real good growth. Like I saw myself evolved as a person. I couldn't talk in public at all before I went into architecture. So architecture sort of broadens your world so much that you start looking at everything from perspective of not only the art and science that it teaches you, but also humanities is a subject in architecture where you actually learn the history of art and architecture, and also the human value in the spaces. And that is how I think, and that has been such a big help later on, like now in the filmmaking career. But yeah, that was architecture, how it actually helped me grow so much as a person. So when I was in fourth year architecture, I met this production designer called Sharmishta Roy. She used to work in a lot of Dharma films and I think Yash Raj films and all. Her father also used to be like, her father is the one who designed Sholay.
Okay.
So she comes from, heritage of design. So I used to be seminar secretary. So I called her for a lecture series in college and she gave this presentation. And I was like, okay, this is really fascinating because you're still in the field of design, but you're also in films. And
Yeah.
of course, with my father's connection to films, I thought, maybe I'll just try it if it works, if I am still interested and, if I enjoy it. If not, I'll come back to architecture. So of course, I never went back to
No
architecture.
way.
Here. So that was the shift from architecture to production design, and I started working with this production designer called Sabu Cyril. But I was assisting for like some 3 years, and I got offered an independent project. I was, I think, only 20 for that time when I did my first film as an independent art director. And you'll notice that I keep saying production designer and art director. I'll talk later on about
Yeah.
the difference of that.
Yeah.
But at that time, I was an art director, not a production designer, because production design also the
Mm.
term has come in Indian films only like 7 8 years ago.
Yeah.
So that is how I shifted. That is how I got my first film. Literally learned everything on the job because architecture and production design is two very, very different things. It's architecture,
Mm.
you're designing spaces for people who are going to live in it. So it's different than a space where you have to see something to feel something. So it became, so I literally, when I was working as an assistant, I was trying to pick up, even in terms of technicality, like construction of a set. The way actual buildings are constructed is very different than the way sets are constructed. So I learned it on the job. And even actually, when I got my first film, I was still learning. And well, I'm still learning. I hope the learning never stops. But yeah, that was a journey from there to here. But I think the overall influence of being a minority here, and that has really made the journey more rich. Like when you talk about, how I ended up becoming a director, why did I feel the need of telling a story and not be satisfied just being a designer? I think,
We'll
yeah.
get into that deeply in the direction part. So for
One
now,
one thing,
yeah.
one request to Shazia. Can you just um, adjust
Maybe
the frame a little bit,
yeah,
because
bring it
Oh,
up.
it's cut here
okay.
a little bit.
Like this? Is
Yes,
it better?
perfect.
Okay.
Yep, better. Okay. Yeah, go for it.
So,
Sure.
so now, yeah. So Arif was telling me earlier that there's no concept of production design in Bangladesh. So why don't we start on from there? Because you also mentioned that India is getting accustomed to this term and this theme overall since past 7 years. So what was your thinking when you joined it as an art director, and then eventually you also learned on the job about production design? So can you talk about these two things here?
So actually production design, it's called, so I'll tell you the difference between production design in US and UK, because what we work in India,
Mm.
it's more of a UK based template, because production designer in US in Hollywood is somebody who manages the overall look of the film of every department. So it's not just art department, but it also manages costume, it also manages the title design. It also, so it can depend on different projects, but it's the overall look of the film. Here it's mostly the head of our department is called production design, and this is how UK works. And since of course we were a colony, we've taken everything from UK, so we also work on their format of making films. So production design, that is how, it's just the head of our department. But of course here also we coordinate the colors with the costume department. And if there is anything with the VFX team that needs to be, because VFX team also, they sometimes build some stuff, and they of course create some stuff on special on computers, right? So they also coordinate with us. But largely the person who's heading the art department is the production designer.
And the art director,
And the
you
art
know,
director is, so I'll tell you the bifurcation. So production designer, the head of the department. Art director is a person who manages the entire department. He becomes the first go-to person for the production designer. So that person can also be the person who's constructing the set. That person can also be the person who's taking charge of the design execution. That person will also make sure that other people are hired. In India it's not so systematic. In UK it is far more like, this is your work, this is your work, one person will not interfere with other department. So we have things like assistant art director, but in UK there will be, it's going to be more like set dresser, prop master. So now slowly, as films are getting more organized here, we have all those roles assigned. But generally under an assistant art director, a person tries to do everything. So that's the main difference. And on a smaller independent film here, actually, the art director and production designer might be the same person, because you can't hire more people. But if there is a bigger production, bigger commercial film, bigger setup, lot of sets, then you'll have a production designer, art director, prop master, set designer, set decorator. So it's like completely, and of course, one person who's just assigned to do all the construction work. So it really depends from one project to other how it goes.
so
I
Arif,
have
when you said
one.
in Bangladesh,
Yeah, yeah, go ahead.
is it not prevalent at all? Like this is just a term, right? Production designer or art director. But the
Actually,
job is
the independent filmmaking scene here, like we have the understanding of production design, and we are trying to incorporate the concept here. But the existing practice, it's actually depending totally on the art director, and there is a huge influence of the television commercial industry. And think Saji already know, like the commercial production, it's totally based on the art direction, and it's really required here in Bangladesh.
It's very
So
designed.
yeah, and the problem is, like, when we want to do any film or like any independent film, then it's really hard to break the rules or the customs or the tradition of the television commercial industry's practice. So I think this is really important, and today's episode is most important because we need to know how it works and how we can,
Hmm.
mingle the both the production
Hmm.
design and art direction thing together. And
Hmm.
also, uh, the pre-production stage, it's really important. I really would love to know more about, like, when you are
Hmm.
planning about the scheme as a
Hmm.
whole. We
Hmm.
don't have that. We
Hmm.
director, or sometimes, like, if we hire someone from abroad who know
Hmm.
the system, then we can work on the entire design, the meta design. But now it's really tough to do that with someone local. Yeah.
Hmm. So, you want me to tell you the exact process of when the script is given to me and then
Yes,
how
yes,
I
yes,
go
yes.
about it,
Yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
So, of course, the first stage is getting script, and the industry is organized now. You do have a script. When I started in 2006, there was no formal way of, like, okay, this is the script. Now you take your design, extract the design from the script. It's far more organized, like that, like with the bound script and all, especially with projects like Sacred Games and the bigger series that's happening on all the OTT channels. So you get the script. You work out a look of the film based on what the script is offering you. Now, sometimes the script can offer you a lot, or it can offer you, like, less. So it depends on the what you're getting from the material. But of course, a production designer's job is to design the overall look and feel of the film. You're designing an entire environment of the film, right? You're creating something that does not exist. And by that I mean, now for different genre it can be completely different. Like, if you see production design of Wes Anderson films or Tim Burton's film, the
Yeah,
art is very in your face. It's, you see every frame by frame it looks designed. But
yeah.
for films which have a more realistic art direction, it's lost in the background. It's more like what we talk about, the camera, that the camera is invisible, so the art is invisible. It's your character, the space just becomes an extension of your character. But even
Mm,
in films like where the art is in your face, like, the space always has to say something about the character, even when the character is not. So how
mm.
do you, like, so in one of my earlier films called Damarodam, I don't know if you've seen it. There was the whole film was, it was a drug film based in Goa. So there
Okay.
was one particular set where we had to design the set for a peddler. Okay. Now there is no
Mm.
reference on the internet. If you go drug peddler's house, you can't get a reference like that. So how do you design something like that? And that's a philosophy that I have extracted out of myself, that you can't, as a production designer or an art director, you cannot execute art of a film as a designer. You have to leave
Mm.
that behind you, right? You have to
Right.
become that drug peddler. You have to own the character, and in that way you are. So there's a process that actors follow. Sorry, going to talk about acting. I'm also a professional actor, by the way.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that
You
later.
have so
But
many things, and I was thinking, like, oh my God, how can I handle today? You are
but you know
actor,
what? It's
you're
just one life.
production
Why do you
designer,
want to restrict
writer.
yourself?
Oh God. Okay, carry on. Sorry. Oh, one thing I want to announce to the audience. So many people waiting to know the story of Bebaak and the connection of your own journey, and yeah, so
I'll
many
talk
things.
about it.
So I just want to let people know the second part of this session. We'll talk about Bebak, and we'll read all the comments. And please keep your eyes open and be with us. Yep. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So yeah, I was telling you like how, if say there is a character, Hamlet's character, right? And if there are 10 different actors, they're going to adapt to the character, even though it's written on paper as one with same dialogue, same characteristic and everything. 10 different actors will play it in their own way because they bring themselves to the character. The process of a behind the camera person is also the same. For a director also it's the same, for a DP, for a production designer it's the same. I am bringing myself to that space. When I'm designing a
Mm,
space, but not as a designer. That's why I have to adapt to the character. So if I'm designing a drug peddler's house in Goa and I have been given an
Mm.
empty shack, now I have to put things that that person is going to put there, which talks about his character, what kind of a person he is. So say
Yeah.
if I put a water bed, so he's more flamboyant like that. I have to put some artwork on the wall that says, so every object that you place in that space talks about the character, because the character cannot go and say, you know what, I'm flamboyant. That happens in really bad films, but that's why the space needs to talk. So that's
Yeah.
my general philosophy of how I do design. But the most important thing is you're bringing yourself to that space. And that's why a production designer has to be someone who's wholesome. But that's also applicable for writers and directors, that you have to have a knowledge of so many things. And it's not just the craft of filmmaking, because
Yeah.
the craft of production design you can learn whether you go to a film school or you go and learn it on the job. You can learn it, but there is so much beyond that, like your knowledge of history of art and architecture, anthropology. You just have to travel, go and observe people. There is so much you have to take in to understand that, like in Sacred Games, Gaitonde's character, he's a small time goon. He starts off as small time goon, and then over a period of 25 years we show his journey as becoming this big don in Bombay, right? Now there is no
Yeah.
way you can go to the internet and type Don's house. Like you will have no idea. So these are things that you're actually giving birth. I feel that's my word. That how writers become gods on paper. They start with a blank page. Production designers are god on the frame, right? Because they also starting from a blank frame, and then
Yeah.
Wow.
everything you put there becomes your character. So yeah, that's the
Yes.
overall idea of how I do design. And of course then there are a lot of elements, like there are three ways. How do you represent design? What are your elements that you're taking in? So thematically you can make art direction stand out in a way that it talks so much about your film. Of course your mood and tone, and then your character. So I can give you example of all three actually. You guys know True Detective season one,
Yeah.
Yeah.
the series. It was hugely popular. So since for character, when you character in relation with art, the space becomes an extension of the character. So Matthew McConaughey's character, he was investigating the case, right? What he did was, a night before, there was this one particular set which was his studio where he's doing the investigation with pictures and everything, trying to figure out who's doing all the killings. So Matthew McConaughey is such a big Hollywood star. He went, and a night before the shoot, he went and he started dressing up the space along with the art department,
Okay.
and he
Wow.
was doing things according to him. So can you imagine? That's such a beautiful process, and it's really very very rare that it happens that actor takes his job so seriously that he would go and and he spent the night in the studio and he was working with the art department the entire night, and he set up his space. So otherwise he could have just gone in the morning and he would have looked at things and like, oh, but to own the space, because there are two jobs of production design. One is a audience has to see the space on the camera and feel the space and the character. The other thing is, on production the actor has to feel the space, because
Yeah.
if the actor doesn't connect to the space, automatically the audience will not connect to the space because he's not feeling like he belongs there. That's why it's such an important and crucial job, that you understand the character the way the actor is understanding the character. A production designer's journey is also the same, that you don't put anything there which doesn't make sense to you.
Mm. Yeah.
So that's character. In terms of mood, the mood plays very very important role, and of course the mood is the tone. It sets the tone of the entire film. And I mean there are a lot of designers who particularly use color as a very strong element to express the tone of the film. Now, the more cliched way of doing things is when we know that, when you have to show a happy happy space or things going right or anything, you go on a more warmer tone. And when things
Yeah.
are bad and gloomy and dull, it becomes more gray and bluish. But I I'll talk about a film which is one of my all-time favorite films, In the Mood for Love.
Oh
And
yes, I think all of
Wow.
yes,
us, all
right?
three.
Everyone just smiles because it's
Yeah.
such a great film. I think it's my most favorite romantic film of all time. And
Mm.
it's putting it in a box by just calling it romantic, but it's one of the greatest film of all time. And it's basically about a couple. I mean, of course, you guys know it's about a relationship film, right? Where things can never be what how they want it to be. And
Yeah.
there's another great film called Blue Valentine. If you guys have seen Ryan
No.
Gosling, so it's the whole film is basically about a couple's relationship that is falling apart, and it's very beautifully fragmented from past and present, and it's not a linear narrative, and really really beautiful. So if you see Blue Valentine's color tone and everything, it's overall the film is very in gray and blue and neutral tones, but you see
Mm.
thematically In the Mood for Love and this is in a similar zone, but In the Mood for Love has very high contrast, deep warm colors, and you can still feel the pain because Wonka Wai has used the passion for he's used a lot of reds and oranges and deep greens to express the passion and the anger and the confusion of the characters, and he's not gone for the usual blues and grays to show the grim and gloomy, and it has an unhappy ending, or throughout the film it's quite an unhappy film actually.
I have one
So
question.
yeah.
So, regarding the In the Mood for Love, as I know, the previous intention from the director was it will be a comedy film, like a
Really,
very,
I don't know that.
yeah, it's a very humorous relation between them. But suddenly, when he started the film, and it took a really long time to shoot the film, and he slowly, discovered that, like, no, I really don't
It's not the
want
right
this.
tone. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So it changed drastically. So my question is like, uh, because you already mentioned, like, the production designer, he or she has his or her own, like, desire or imagination to create something in that field. They are the god. But In the Mood for Love, it's totally like his vision, I mean the director's
Hmm.
vision. So it's really important to know, for me, like, how it's going to be balanced between the director's vision and the production designer's vision, because it's two god in one field. So like the nut cut, it will happen. So how it works?
It's subjective, Arif. I mean, it depends on really honestly who's dominant. Because
Oh
when
my
I work
god.
with Anurag, I am the boss. I do whatever I want to. He lets me do whatever I want to because directors also can be very specific. Like there was a time when I was just working in advertising, and
Hmm.
I just felt like I was an assistant to the director, and it was an absolutely empty feeling of doing because they would
Yeah.
have references and they're like, oh, we want this, and
Yeah.
of course in advertising color palette according to the product and everything is already set, so there is a very small contribution from your side, like creative contribution. If you give me a picture and tell me to recreate it, I don't really think that is creatively going to satisfy me. But yeah, it really depends on directors and relationship between the director and production designer, how it goes. So like I was saying with Anurag, it was very different, and I have other directors with whom I have a relationship where you I feel like when you're hiring a HOD, you're not hiring them as an assistant, they're collaborators, right? So you have to take their
Hmm.
ideas of how things will work. Like I think there was in I was listening to production designer of Inception, and he said
Oh
when he
wow.
came on board, the opening scene of the film is in a oriental space, like a Japanese
Hmm.
conference room, and there are a lot of lanterns on top. You remember that was the opening scene of the
Yeah.
film. So he
Yeah.
said that in the script, it was written to be shot in a Scottish mansion. So he actually said, so it was production designer's idea to change that. Nolan had written it for like in a
Mm.
Scottish mansion, but the production designer suggested that it should be a oriental space because the characters and everything that will work better. And all
Mm.
those lamps that are hung on top, they're actually Japanese lamps, which nobody will ever even figure it out. It has a very deep subtle symbolic meaning that those lamps actually mean that, you know, they represent lost souls, and that is how the characters in Inception are. So there are these little things that production designer adds. So of course there have been many times when I tell my director, you know what, if we don't have budget for this, I mean, most of the things in India happen because of budget. So
Yeah.
if we can't shoot here, why not let's shoot here, and why not let's do this? So of
Mhm.
course that's the healthiest relationship with your director. I wouldn't know what was between Wonker Bai and his production designer, but Wonker Bai has a very strong sense of visual, which we see in, and they're very repeated in all his films. So he has a certain
Yeah.
eye of how the world of his film has to look like. So I feel like somewhere you're also, it's coming together of two gods, right? You're saying the director and the production designer, and of course the DP, the three of them
Yeah,
together.
and the DP, the
And the
third
DP.
god.
Yeah. So it has to be a collaboration. The idea could be anyone's idea of why that corridor in the Mood for Love is all red. So because
Yeah.
maybe Wonker Wai wanted it to be red and, you know, express what was going on in the character's head, or maybe it was a production designer's idea. We'll never know unless we watch something just specific to that particular set.
Yep. I
So
have
yeah,
so many questions. Stop me,
Yeah, I
Shreya.
have. Sorry,
Otherwise, I will.
I did not complete my third thing. I was
third
talking
one,
about
third.
character. Yeah, character, mood, and the third is a theme, which is the most important thing. And how do you get your theme in art, which is very, very difficult to do actually. Say,
Hmm.
so there's this film called Nocturnal Animals. It's actually, the director used to be a production designer,
Oh
and when
wow.
I saw the film, Tom Ford is the director. So he's also a fashion designer. He's basically a designer who's now, like, Nocturnal Animal was his second film, which came out, I think, in 2018 or something. And really a great film. You have to watch it if you haven't. So the film basically is about these two, about a couple and about exes who were married earlier, and the woman gets a book from the man at the start of the film, and the whole film is three narratives. One is what is happening in the book is played by
Hmm.
the same two people. That's a separate narrative, the present of the film and the past of their relationship. And you have no idea, it's a mystery film, okay, so you have no idea what is happening in the film, and it's very intriguing and everything, and you're like, what's happening? And in the last 10 minutes, this woman is a art curator in the film, and she walks past this frame which says revenge. Okay.
Hmm.
And you automatically get it that, well, that's the theme of the film. It's a film about revenge because the girl dumps the
Yeah.
boy, and that is the whole film. And the book was the boy's revenge on the girl. I won't, sorry for the spoiler, I won't say
Spoilers.
anything, yeah, anything more than that. But yeah, you have to watch
Yeah.
that film. So that is how you include sometimes, and it had to be done by a director who used to be a production designer, because sorry, it cannot just be a director's idea, because that guy is a designer, he just put it. And a lot of people could not figure it out, because I think I have some design background, that's why I could, that, oh, it's very, like, you know, this was his intention. And I read the production designer's interview on it, and he said that the revenge poster was Tom's first requirement from our team, because he wanted everyone to crack the film looking at the poster of revenge. So that's how you include theme in your art. Another great example actually would be Marriage Story, which I'm sure you guys have seen, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
The
Yeah.
Yeah, the Netflix film. So, Marriage Story, the whole theme is about separation and space between two couples, how space becomes the reason for their separation. And if you see how their house is designed early in the film, it's full of things, and you know how a space looks when people are inhabiting it over a certain period of time. And as the film progresses and as the couple is separating, you see that the space where the husband stays, it becomes sparse and sparse. So actually, the emptiness, the
Yeah.
loneliness, the separation, you get it into the
Hmm.
space itself. So
Yeah.
that's another great example. But yeah, this is how you can adapt in three different ways. And of course, then there are a lot of elements. And like I said, in mood, I use color very strongly to represent the character and the tone of the film and everything. But every designer has their own way of what becomes a powerful element
Mm.
that moves the design.
Yep. Shreya,
Yeah.
anything you
Uh,
want to ask?
I wanted to ask, so we have talked so much about, the creative aspect of a production designer. So I was yesterday talking to a friend of mine who's trying to be a production designer, is now a prop stylist in Bombay. So she told me that she never sees herself as a production designer now, because like she's very depressed, because there is so much to do apart from the creative side as well. Like she has been assisting so many people, and she's saying like you need certain boss quality, and you need that managerial quality and aspects also, which we normally don't talk about. When we talk about being a DP as well, needs the same managerial aspect because you handle such a big team on set. So can you talk about that aspect of this job as well?
Yeah, it becomes a very organizational, like how do you, so of course you have to have a multitasking skill, which I think
Mm.
women are sort of blessed with, because you have to do 10 different things at the same time. You have to have the capacity to not sleep because you, especially on outdoor shoot for our team, it's never considered that they are humans who also need to sleep.
Yeah.
So you need to know that. But overall, in terms of managing things, see, there is already things are much more structured now. So, like, I have an art director who's handling the entire team. The art director has their assistant. Then there is, say, two people who are doing the graphics of the entire film. There are three people doing just handling the props. There is one particular person just doing action props. Action props are props that actors handle. Then there are three people who are doing the set dressing. So they will coordinate with the art director. The art director will coordinate with me, but I work as a very hands-on production designer because I cannot work in a way that I don't go on the set and I assign work and leave. I've never worked like that. So I am also directly coordinating with all the prop master and the set designer, the graphic designer. They also come and they coordinate with me directly. So you need to manage that. And at the time of the shoot, we are always working on the current set where the shoot is happening, and there is always a forward set, right? Where the next shoot will move on. So you divide your team like that. So there is one team which is, there are two assistants, say, on the set who are just on shoot people. They know all the continuity. And of course, then the workers team gets involved. There are set boys and there are carpenters, there are painters. If the construction is happening on a forward set, that team is entirely different. So the shooting team and the setting team becomes completely different. So you have to delegate work like that to be, especially with something as big as, say, Sacred Games, it becomes very important. If it's a smaller shoot, then we try and multitask. Like, I will also do action props. It doesn't matter that I'm a production designer because there is no small work. I have seen Anurag Kashyap also do action props for Bergman Pyramid.
Is it stuck?
Yeah, I think so.
What do we do?
Ah,
I think
no,
Shajan
actually,
can remove her and add her back.
no, I think she will be back within 1 minute. Yeah,
Sorry.
Yay! It's okay.
yeah. I don't know. Like, if my team member is there, can you put Shazia like top
She's
of the
back.
frame?
Oh,
No,
She's
no,
back.
that's fine.
She's in a different position now. Yeah,
Yeah.
perfect. Thank you.
Oh, I
It's
got
magic.
moved to top.
I always want you beside me.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay,
So
carry
I
on.
was saying there is no small work on a set. Like, I have seen my director also do, like, broom on the set. I have done that. So there is, on the shoot, when you're there and something is needed, you don't see that this person is assigned to do that particular job. You just run and get the job done because time is money on set. You're losing money every second that's passing by. So everything becomes everybody's responsibility. But overall, organizing it in the pre-production becomes really important, because then you know that like, there is a prop AD from the direction team, right? So that prop AD knows that which person he has to coordinate for what. So if there is some coordination, there are lots of levels of coordination, right? Like if we want pictures of actors dressed up as characters for picture frames in the film, so there is a separate AD who does that, and there is a separate person in our department, the person handling the graphics department, who does that. So every role is assigned like that. So managing
Mm.
things like, sometimes, and of course the accounting, the budgeting and accounting, which
Wow.
is
I was coming
also,
to that. Yeah.
yeah, because everything gets moved or pushed by the budget. Like I can have
Mm.
my dream to make a grand set like Grand Budapest Hotel, but if I
Mhm.
have budget just to make one small room kitchen or set, then of course I can't match that. And unfortunately, the budgets actually have only started improving now in last 4 or 5 years after Netflix has
Mm.
come to India and Amazon has come to India, and there's a lot of money coming. And people are spending on sets. But from the time that I was doing art direction to now, only big commercial films had that kind of money to put in the
Mm.
sets, and not medium budget or independent films were like just free whatever location, go and put some props and shoot, more like that. So everything moves according to the budget of the show. So yeah, organizing it becomes a very, very important part. Like designing is of course what you're ultimately doing for the film, but how you manage everything in the given budget is actually the most challenging bit, because you cannot
Mm.
expect your producer, you will not get a job again if you spend, say, if the amount is like $1 million, and if you spend $10 million, then of course, sorry, I'm just saying in dollars because I don't know what's a common currency and the exchange rate and all. But you can't end up spending 10 times more, because then you'll not be considered a
Yeah.
feasible designer. They'll, even if your design is great, they'll end up looking at somebody else. So the challenge
Mm.
is to do it in the restriction of whatever the budget is, and if you come like within that restriction, then you become a star for producers.
Yeah. Shreya, we have like 2 hours today for
Yeah.
this session. We already spent like 42 minutes, and I really want to know more about Sacred Games, Last Stories, Bebaak, and Mukkabaaz, and so many other productions. But we don't have plenty of time. Like the producer always say, like we don't have enough budget. So yeah, I really want to show the audience the slideshow of and the mood board of Bebaak. So just let me
Do you
know
want
when.
me to talk about Bebaak or Sacred Games first?
I think you can just give us like a quick overview of Sacred Games, like how you work and what was the experience, and then in detail we can go through the slides for Bebak.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I wasn't supposed to do Sacred Games. I ended up doing 2 seasons of it,
Wow.
because
Mm.
yeah, because when I had met Anurag during Mukkabaaz, my first film with him, and we did another short film that he directed after that. And then I wanted to make a film for a very long time. So after, because he's such a easy going guy, and he just makes it look so easy. And like a lot of directors who behave like it's a matter of life and death. So you don't get inspired by people like that. So Anurag's only inspiring quality is that he just looks so chilled out on a set that I was like, if this guy can make a film, I can make a film.
And you did
Right.
it.
Yeah, I really mean it. He knows this. I've told him.
Yeah.
So, right after making Mukabas, actually, I came back. We were shooting in Banaras. I came back. I wrote Bebaak in like 4 days. I wrote a treatment and I did some mood board and I wrote the script. All of it in 4 days because I really wanted to make the film that time. And and in another month and a half, when I was prepping for Bebaak, I got a call from his team saying he was already on board as producer for Bebaak that time. And I got a call that Sacred Games is happening, because I think Sacred Games was getting written for a long time, but the decision to make it just happened very abruptly. And that gave us like pre-production time, just I think 1.5 month, which is very less for a web series of
Mm.
eight
Yeah.
episodes, 9 episodes.
Yeah.
So I was in the middle of production for Bebaak, so I refused it. I said, "This time I'm making my film, so no way I'm taking up anything else." So I refused it actually, but it so happened that they started. So I finished my production end of first week of September. That is exactly the time shooting for Sacred Games started. And
Mm,
Anurag called me in the middle of their shoot and he said, I want you on the project. And, so it so happened that I ended up doing that. But it was absolutely insane because it was a period look because we were dealing from
yeah.
1969 to 1993 Bombay. And
Mm,
for a period piece, you need to do a lot of research. Like
Research.
something like Sacred Games would require 2.5 months. And
mm,
I came on Sacred Games, I think on 6th September. Mukkabaaz had got selected for TIFF, Toronto, and it was
mhm,
going to premiere on 13th September. So I was supposed to go with Anurag and my other team members there and then come back and start shooting for Sacred Games again. So they had a 5 day
wow.
schedule, which I didn't do it. So I was literally reading the script of Sacred Games on the flight to Toronto, which
Wow.
was, and I didn't even have a
Crazy.
team. I just had my art director Madhura, who's been a very long associate of mine. So she was there in the team, but even to hire, construction people and set dressers and other assistant and graphic team, you need at least good 2 to 3 weeks because there is a lot of
Mm,
work happening in India then and not now, but at least then. So you need that much time to hire people, and I didn't have that time. So it
mm,
was insane. The entire first season of Sacred Games, there was just three people in my team, including myself. So there was just production designer, my art director, and one assistant. There was no graphic team. There was no set dresser. There was nobody because there
Yeah.
was no time to hire people. So it became like the most challenging thing that I'd ever done because I came back from Toronto and still jet lagged and everything. I was just
mm,
jet lagged for 2 months of Sacred Games, and that's my secret of whatever, however
wow.
Sacred Games looks. I just did the entire thing, and because we never got time to sleep. Like after we came back, every night Madhura and I would sit and do referencing for the next setup. In the morning, I would go to a prop shop and start marking things. Marking is like when you select stuff for the setups, the furniture and the
Mm,
frames, the lamps and everything. And Madhura would go and work on the forward set, and my assistant Lavanya. And Lavanya was like a completely new person that time. She had just done one film or something, so she was a new girl who didn't have any experience. She was handling on shoot the entire film, and she didn't even know, like, when you're on shoot art assistant, you need to have a rapport with the team and you need to know everyone. She was a new person, but somehow everything fell in place. And but for the first 20 days of going into production, it was a nightmare, like the most difficult phase, because I was also coming from 2 months of working on Bebaak and directing my first film. You know how direction is like, right? It's
Different
like
mm,
yeah, it's a completely different experience because I have been doing production design, which is a lot of work, but it is still one department. Direction is everything. And Anurag was the ghost producer. Madhura and I also produced the film because he said, "You have my name, and this is a certain amount that you want for the film." And of
wow.
course, his line production company who gave us, like, connect number of the camera team and all of that. But everything
Mm,
else was done by Madhura and me. Madhura became my production designer in the film, and we were casting, we were doing workshop with actors, location hunting. We didn't have a location manager. Everything just became our thing. So I was coming from 2.5 months of that, and then going into this directly. So I now don't know how that happened.
and I have
What do you
one
eat?
question. Like uh, during the Sacred Games, the costume department also was on board, like with you under
So
the scheme.
So they always coordinate. The costume department's job is to coordinate with the production designer on colors, especially. They
Mm,
also show us
mm,
references and they say that this is the world that we are looking at. So if you see Sacred Games is even the book actually is not in the realistic tone. It has a little pulpy look, right?
yeah.
Pulp fiction kind of zone.
Mm,
So the
mm,
series also has that. The way Gaitonde dresses, the way his other people dress, it's not very, there is a certain design element to it. And
yeah.
all of that, of course, is costume department, but the way colors and tones. So I also have to adapt my set and they have to adapt to the set. And not just in terms of colors, but also in terms of design. But they will always come to me and the DP and they'll
Mm-hmm.
have like say 3 option for shirts that Gaitonde can wear in this scene, and it
Mm-hmm.
happens on shoot or they also do it beforehand actually. So with production design team, they show us the stuff beforehand, like a night before, because well, we didn't have pre-production time, so it always used to be a night before the shoot. But on with
Yeah.
DP, because after the DP has lit the set and with the lights and everything, they bring the costume on the set and they're like, these are the 3 options, what should Gaitonde
Mm.
wear, if it's not a continuity, if it's a fresh scene, of course. So yeah, that is how it generally works. Like the design is the color becomes very important between the production design team and the costume team, so it doesn't clash. Like if the walls are blue color, then well,
Mm-hmm.
if you have a blue color, like if my room is, if this wall is green color right now, I will wear green top at some point, right? So in reality it does happen, but you're working towards a frame that is designed as much as you want to hide the design. So
Yeah.
you
Mm.
make sure that the character is not merging into the wall. So well,
What about this?
this is beautiful. Red and yellow is a very deadly combination.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, I think we should move on Bebaak now because it's 50 minutes already. Yeah. So yeah, I'm just counting the time. Oh my God, it's super fast. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, we can start about Bebaak. And whenever you want to show the mood board, Shajan is there from back. He will. He will. Shajan, please forgive me. Yeah, he's ready. He's ready. Yeah, you want to show the slide now? Oh yes.
Yeah,
So
Yeah.
Shazia.
well, can I progressively talk about Bebaak design? Should I say? I think that someone had asked the question. I mean, we can go to the questions later, but just what was the idea of making Bebaak first? Um,
Mm-hmm.
well, I started after I started doing production design. I started working in a lot of terrible mainstream films because sometimes. Sorry, can we take the slide off now? I'll tell you when to put in. So
Yeah.
I ended up working in a lot of mainstream films, which gave me a lot of existential crisis. And that is when in 2012 I took a 6 months break and I went to Europe and I did a couple of workshops, one acting workshop in Paris. I wanted to do screenwriting, but there was the seats were full. So I went and I studied
Oh,
acting. Then I studied direction. Both of them were like 2 months workshops. It was not like a degree course, but just like a diploma short course.
yeah.
And the diploma course was in London. And then I was just backpacking. I did a solo trip. So that was, I think, more than the workshops. The solo trip was actually a huge part in, self growth and evolution of the mind, which I will talk about later, how it helps as a writer director. But yeah, solo traveling, I will recommend to anyone who's watching now or later. Please travel alone and see how it changes you as a person. Not needed in this video, but I
Yeah.
just felt like I should have said that. So I was thinking of making a film since 2012, and I wrote a script, and it started going to different labs. I think I wrote the first script and it was a feature film script in 2014, and it got selected for a few labs, and then this lab called Mumbai Mantra, which used to happen in collaboration with Sundance earlier, but now
Mm.
this was an independent one, and they had a pitching session at the end of the year after the mentorship was over. And in the pitching session, it was very funny because I suddenly became a woman writer. Otherwise, I was just a writer. So the protagonist of my film was a girl, and so one studio told me that, oh, you have a female protagonist and you're a female director, so who's going to put money in it? So one studio told me that, can you change the gender of the protagonist? So I was like, okay. So those are the kind of questions I got during pitching session. But one of them was very kind, and he told me that if you want to direct, they really love the script. So they told me that either you sell the script to us, we would like to make it. But if you want to pitch yourself as a director, you should have a short film with you, so we know what you are capable of. Because of course you're a woman and director is a very man job, so you already are disqualified from that. This is all in sarcasm, guys. Please understand the tone. But yeah, directing is a male job. It's not for women because somehow we have ended up gendering everything in the world. And filmmaking is, of course, no one will spare filmmaking also, right? So I decided to make a short film, but then I got offered Mukkabaaz. This was late 2015, and then I was working on a few advertising. Again, advertising makes you feel as empty as possible, as soulless, kind of gives you all kind of crisis because you're making money, but nothing really stays with you. So as an
Mm.
artist, it didn't do anything for me. Advertising, the money was the only reason I was doing because you need to run the house also. So then in 2017, when I did Mukkabaaz with Anurag, and then, well, I like I said that after seeing Anurag on job, I was like, it doesn't look like it's very difficult to do, and so I came back and I wrote the script, and people started reacting to the script in a very different way. They're like, "Fuck, this is great." Sorry for my language. I'm hoping children are not watching this, but people started reacting to the script and in a very positive way, and I started getting empowered by people's reaction that this needs to be made. But even before that, this story has been with me for 2 decades. This is something that has been part of my life. And I had narrated this story idea, to two other friends in 2016, like a year before I made Bebaak. And they felt that because it is something that points a finger at Muslims. Well, not Muslims. If you understand the film correctly, then it's pointing a finger at misogyny in any religion. So we
Mm.
are targeting patriarchy here. We're targeting patriarchy and misogyny in religion, not the people who follow the religion. That was the idea. But they said no, things were, since 2014, Modi got elected and Muslims have been attacked in different ways, mob lynching and every other way. And so my friend said it's not the right time to make the film. And two people said that. So I dropped the idea earlier, but then I narrated the film to Madhura actually at some point during Mukaba shoot, and she said, "Oh, it's a great idea." And the whole original story was just the incident that had happened in the office. Um, and Madhura said, "This is a great idea, and we should make a film on it." And suddenly, one person responding to it so positively, and a friend who's been so close to me for so long, it just felt like, oh, maybe I should look into it. And so after the scripting was done and the way people were reacting, like they have not read short film scripts like that. And if you see the
Mm.
quality of short films in India, you'll know that it was just valid to respond like that, because YouTube is full of a lot of amateur work and mediocre work where people
Yeah.
just for the heck of, because a lot of people make short films for as a stepping stone to feature films, which is also something I think I was originally doing. But in the process of making Bebaak, it became like, just after finishing the script, it became so important to me because the issue of women's place in society is so important to me now over a period of time, because I have also discovered myself from the time I have written Bebaak to now, which has been 2.5 years.
Mm.
So because we make now, it's going into a philosophy of being an artist or creating art, but we make art to make sense of our existence, right? To make sense of ourselves. So Bebak helped me do that, and I realized that for me, all the other wars that is happening in the world is secondary. For me, the most important war is the man versus woman war that is happening. And I'm sorry, I'm calling it a war, but the way women have been treated for thousands of years, it is not invalid to call it a war. There is a war happening against women, just that we are not aware of it. So that
Yeah.
was the process of starting Bebaak, and it became a very personal journey while writing the film, while going into production, and all the experiences that we had, because we wanted to shoot in mosque and dargahs and madrasas. And initially, we had a location manager who took us to these places where we kept getting thrown off the location because they would not
Mm.
allow women to enter the premises. And
Mm.
in fact, there were two mosques that we had finalized, and just a week before the shoot, they refused us because we were mostly going for pre-recce's in the early morning when nobody would be there, and our tech recce happened in the afternoon when a lot of committee members and all of them were present. Just our bad luck or whatever. But they told me very bluntly, and I remember that day so well because I think the inciting incident of my life is that day when there were
Mm.
20 men standing in front of me and Madhura, and they are like, we will you're a woman, we will not let you enter, you have no right to enter the premise, because the whole idea of women not entering mosque because women are impure is so ingrained in their head that it was very disturbing. Like, I remember having like bloodshot eyes, and I know that if I would have reacted, they would have just beaten me up. So I
Yeah.
knew the logic was not to react. But there were other male team members, the DP and the sound designer, and other, and they were all standing at one place, and me and Madhura were standing there arguing with 20 men. And at one point, I told them, you're born out of a woman. Yeah, the only thing that you have to understand is feel ashamed of how you think about a feminine energy. It is that you think that they are not worthy of entering your space. So we lost all locations a week. We were prepping for 2.5 months, and we lost all the locations a week
Oh
before
my
the
God.
shoot. And that felt like the story needed to be told even more, and there was so much more of the story that needs to be added, is the hatred of women in religion and complete
Mm.
sidelining and treating women like Simone de Beauvoir wrote in her book, right, The Second Sex, the othering of the
Yeah.
woman and the treating her like a second gender. I could feel that during the experience of Bebaak. Like, there was one incident,
Yeah.
sorry, I have to say this. There was the second mosque. After the first mosque, we lost on the morning of the tech recce. In the afternoon, we went to the second mosque, and we were planning to do the office space and the madrasa space and the periphery all in these two different mosques. So the second mosque now became like our important place where we do all the shoot. And when we went to that mosque, we were there at the afternoon namaz time, and it was like a ground plus one structure where me and my team were standing on top, and there was a atria kind of thing, so you can look down where the men were reading namaz. And I just tried to peek to see what's happening because it was only the second time we were going to that building. And this guy comes charging at me and say, "Madam, don't go there." And I said, "What happened?" And he's like, "No, if your shadow or your eyes fall on the men praying, then unki namaz kaza ho jayegi." Kaza means it will fail. So
Mm.
if a woman will just look at a man praying, the you know the whole
Prayer
prayer
Yeah.
is
fails.
valid.
Yeah. So the whole, I don't know if you know about this incident also at Sabrimala temple, which was happening last year in India, where women are
Mm.
fighting the rights to go to the temple.
Temples.
Mm.
So we are not allowed in the religious places. So I mean, honestly, personally, fuck it. If they don't allow us, I shouldn't want to go there. But the issue is much more deeper than that.
Yeah, on the second part of this show, we'll talk really in depth in this issue with Humaira also because she will join after 15 minutes. But before bringing her, we can take a look of the slides if you want to show a little bit and talk a little further for the production design of Debak. And yeah, Shaljini is there, so yeah, you
Hell,
can just narrate.
Madhura should have been here because I'm not the production designer, but I'll speak about it. So
Yeah.
our intention with Bebaak was, I am deeply influenced by Iranian cinema and Asghar Farhadi and Majid Majidi, and grown up, these are my influences actually. So I wanted the
Mhm.
film to also, Muslims in Indian films are so badly represented, the entire Muslim world. I have just in the earlier films in the 90s and all, one lead character's friend would be Muslim, always a bit funny. Or now in the last 7 8 years, it's black or white. It's either Muslim character is a terrorist or he's like this really good guy, completely whitewashed, and both the characters don't have any humanism in them. Like, you don't believe they're actual people.
Yeah.
That is how Muslims are stereotyped in India, because I don't know, Muslims are aliens maybe. People don't know them. People don't have them as neighbors. So it's either this or that. So my intention was that it has to be Muslims have to be seen in the film with a very human eye. I don't know how far I have been successful in that, but just like a middle class family, urban family, it was, of course, a Bombay story, so urban family staying, a Muslim staying family staying in between in a Hindu society. So how would that be represented? So the Iranian films became very important look for me in the film, because that was a very purposeful design of how the frame should be. And I don't know how much successful we have been, because short films have their own journey. When everything starts falling, then you of course just you adapt to whatever is being given to you. But
Yeah.
these were our initial ideas of how we tackled Fatin's journey. Fatin, of course, is the lead character
Mm.
in the film. How we tackle her journey and how the colors had to be more. So I wanted two very different worlds, which sort of did not happen, because she's a Muslim who stays in a non-Muslim area, right? And the world that she goes into for her interview and connecting with madrasa girls and everything, that's the other Muslim world, because that's more like a ghetto. So
Mm.
that world I wanted like more of greens and grayish greens and colors and tones like that. So it stands out as this Muslim world, which of course is the representation of how Bhindi Bazaar is the area where it is set in. It's
Yeah.
a Muslim ghetto in South Bombay, and her world had to look more like it's not a Muslim ghetto, so it had to have a very different look. Now,
Mm.
unfortunately, we got a house in a studio which was already green in color. So I didn't want that green tone and green color in the house, but we didn't have money to repaint it, because it also takes a day of setting money and then paint money and everything. So we had to go along with the green color in the house. So those were the compromises. So the stark thing that we've seen in the mood board of more neutral peaches or say light gray or anything, and then the green world, that did not come across because of that. But at some level, you have to compromise. But the way short films are designed in India, everyone says it's a short film. Don't bother about the visual of how the film is. That's the attitude of overall short filmmaking world. Because, like I said, people treat it like a stepping stone, and that's why the production quality is really bad, because they just shoot at some friend's house or somewhere. People send me on Instagram, people send me their film saying this is a zero budget film. And I'm like, why are you making a zero budget film? So, Nolan said that films are not radio plays. It has to be visually engaging. And if it's not
Mm.
sucking you into its world, it's a failed film. You can have a great script and great performance, but if it doesn't look, because every image is saying something to you, and if it doesn't look like that, then there is no
Yeah.
pride in making it in less money or zero money. So
Yeah.
that was
Mm.
my first requirement from my team. That Anurag actually told me initially that this is the money and this is what we can afford and make your film in this much. But when we crossed that budget, I put in my own money and I became the co-producer. So whatever money I earned in Sacred Games, I put in the production of this, because I was like, this is my one chance of making the short film. And I don't want
Yeah.
to make something substandard and then say, oh, you know what, we didn't have money and let's go and make something else. I wanted it to look like a film, like all films should be. The format should not restrict the production quality of the film, which is what is happening in India. And I was like, it should not happen. And especially in Bombay, when you're shooting something, if you go and tell someone that, we are making a short film, nobody gives you a discount on location. And
Mm.
like, and we had so many locations that half of our money went into location and camera. Everyone told me, no, let's shoot on Sony A7, it's cheaper. And we ended up shooting on, but my DP was very sure. He is like, you've given me a mood board, you want the film to look a particular way, you want it to look like it's shot. So I told him I want the quality to look like it's shot on film. So
Yeah.
even if we're
Mm.
going digital, we cannot shoot on Sony A7, because it will look like it's shot on Sony A7.
So Shazia,
So,
who actually like sacrificed at the end? Nawaz, Vipin? I mean the actors?
who
No, I don't
sacrificed
know.
it then, as in?
Because the budget you're
Oh,
telling like no one sacrificed like the location, the DP.
well,
Because
Nawaz
I
didn't
know the
take
budget.
any money.
I know the
Nawaz didn't
budget.
take,
So
the budget, okay. So
yeah.
Nawaz didn't take any money. Vipin didn't take any money. Sheba Chaddar
Wow.
didn't take any money. So most of the bigger actors didn't take any money because honestly, what can a short film budget give to somebody like Nawaz, right?
Yeah.
No way.
So
No way.
yeah,
He,
exactly. So
he
they
can't
didn't
he
take
can't
money.
buy he can't buy any lungi from the
Exactly.
remuneration.
Exactly. My DP didn't charge any money, but we won the
Oh
state
wow.
award in Maharashtra. We won the best short fiction and the best camera. So there he got 3 lakhs. So he got like a really big amount. So I was very happy for
Yeah.
him.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
most of the other, which camera did you use? I'll
Which
just
camera?
answer this guy,
Yeah.
Alexa Mini. Alexa Mini.
Hmm.
Oh, great.
Hmm.
So that is very expensive because it's the most in-demand camera currently. Like for films, especially not for web series, but for films, Alexa Mini is very popular. Even for commercials, it's quite popular actually.
Shaz, how
So,
many days you shot the film? How many days?
so the principal photography was 4 days, and B
Hmm.
unit shoot with like just 6, 7 of us was 2 more days because all the exterior shot of Bhindi Bazaar and the Ganpati festival. It's an actual Visarjan which was happening at the
Yeah, yeah,
time.
yeah.
It was crazy because we shot in between Eid and between Ganpati
Yes.
Visarjan. And
Wow.
in south of Bombay, when it's chaotic and like it's,
Hmm.
in fact, the place where we
But
shot the office.
but you know, my one of my producers, Shajon, he told me just after the screening of Bebaak today, like the shot when when Fatin walking against the like the tide, the masculinity, the
Hmm.
people, and she's walking the opposite side. It's really like a super impactful moment.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And it's
it
an
was.
actual resurgent crowd. So it's my
Yeah.
own experience, or any woman grown up in India or probably subcontinent. When you walk in a crowd, your shoulders automatically droop. So if you see
Mm,
Sarah's shoulder is sort of drooping, and her
mm,
dupatta is like completely covering. So it's a state of mind the way her
yeah.
walk is. So we made Sarah walk through a lot of Visarjan crowd. I mean, of course, taking care of her, but it was a seventh day Visarjan. So our big Visarjan happens on the 11th day when the entire Bombay Ganpati goes for Visarjan. But this was seventh day, so it was relatively crowded, but not very crowded. But we made her walk against actual crowd because they don't know we were filming. So when you set
Yeah.
up a scene like that and there are junior artists around, they automatically will behave like junior artists. So we didn't want that. We wanted it to be as natural as how a woman feels in a space with 1000 men around, in a
Yeah.
crowded
Yeah.
space like that. And a religious thing, because religion of course was the theme of the whole thing. So a friend of mine actually extracted something beautiful which I sort of didn't do intentionally, that in India, because everything around Hindu festival happens with on street and with so much noise. And
Mm.
like in the scene where she meets Nawaz and the whole sequence happens, it happens in closed shut room and passages. So he said that it's a representation of how misogyny works in India, that in Hindu religion it happens openly on the street because they're the majority, and with Muslims
Oh
it
my
happens
God.
in rooms.
Yeah.
And it wasn't intentional, but he read that and it was so beautiful.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
beautiful. The
Yeah.
metaphor. It's really
Yeah.
beautiful. And
Alice, let's
it's
take Humaira now. It's 1:50.
yeah, it's time to bring our guest. But before bringing Humaira, if you want to have something, tea, coffee, or a break, you
I
can
just have
have.
my water here.
Otherwise, later on, you will kill me. Like no break.
Alice, you should send us something.
What? What?
No,
So,
it's too late in the night to have tea, coffee right now. It's okay. Water is good.
yeah, I have a matching cup with my, like the yellow.
Oh,
So
damn. You're real. We are twinning today.
And same color of your highlights.
So,
yeah,
is
yeah.
his hair blue?
I,
I
I don't
wish,
know
I
how.
wish Arif had blue hair.
No, no, you
So
have.
No,
it's
I'm
it's
just
time
saying
to
it would have
change
been
your
great.
it's it's time to change your hairstyle now. This is the second part of the
Yeah.
show.
Okay. I can
Yeah,
change. Okay.
yeah.
I
Change it.
uh, I read a very funny comment. I mean, sorry I have
Yeah.
not been able to read the comment, but someone said that this is an easy way of
Guruji.
getting beheaded. No, no, someone wrote, I think it's an easy way of getting beheaded when I was talking about religion.
So,
Okay, so Shajon,
Oh yeah,
please bring.
please just put that thing again. Yes.
Yeah, this is the time. Yeah, exactly.
So
It's 15 minutes.
In India, if you want to get beheaded, you have to talk about Hinduism right now in the current political scenario.
yeah.
Hi.
Yeah, Humara Bilkis is here.
Hi,
What-
Welcome to our
Hi,
show.
Myra.
thank you.
Uh,
Hi, Shazia. Hi,
Hi.
Triya.
Are you wearing green?
Yeah,
Show
And you
it
didn't
off.
see me with the
And
yellow
we have
yeah.
t-shirt.
a green company.
Same color with Triya, right?
but she's the most like classic white and black background.
Serene.
Yeah, it's all color here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So for the
So
audience,
thanks.
Humaira Bilkis, she's one of very important documentary filmmaker, and soon I wish she will be the fiction filmmaker also from Bangladesh. And interesting thing is today two of our guests, Shazia and Humaira, they are working, uh, a great field that is religion. Okay, so the intention in every episode, we bring someone from outside of Bangladesh, which is like global for me, and also from Bangladesh. There is someone, and the thing is like me and Shreya, we just want to put them and want to see the interaction, and sometimes we'll talk, we'll cut in between. So yeah, I really want to know like why you two interested to work on religion in your films. Yeah. And before that, Humaira can talk a little bit about her project.
Uh, Thanks for calling me. And the first thing I want to say thanks to Shazia for making a nice film.
My
It's
pleasure.
it's really wonderful to see this film because it is so natural. And I think it's better to say a little bit about the film because it's a very recent experience. I have just seen it.
Hmm.
Um, I really liked it. I mean, I like the way you shot, and it is so existential. And it is actually we have a common you know we have a common religion, and I think because of the same kind of cultural experience, I I can connect with it so easily. And the interesting thing, I was listening to you. I mean, you were talking about the production design and art direction and all, and it is so naturally shot. I mean, it is so realistic. I mean, it is not like art design kind of thing. I mean, it doesn't show that you know it is not showing up that it is a film. I'm shooting it and it is the set. So it is so naturally designed. It is the locations, the acting. So I really liked it. Congratulations to you.
Thank you.
I mean, it is credible. This film is very credible. The credibility level is very high.
Thanks.
Yeah. Show,
Thank you.
give her some insight about your project. I know everything about your project, but I think Shazia also want to know and share
Okay.
also.
It actually, I've been making documentaries predominantly because I like it, because of this realistic nature. And nowadays, we don't call documentary; we call reality storytelling. I think it's more, interesting way to articulate it. And it is, yeah, it is. I mean, the film I'm making right now, I'm doing right now, it is so experiential, and that's why it is about. I mean, Arif, it is not about the religion. I want to say. I think
Okay.
this communication. If I
Somehow I got the connection with today's topic.
Yeah, it
That's
is.
why.
I mean, as Shajia said, it is about misogyny. So misogyny
Mm.
is everywhere. It is in every. If you,
Mm,
I mean,
mhm,
it is in every religion. So
mm,
in my case also, I mean, as I'm born in a Muslim family, so it is about. So the backdrop is a Muslim. I mean, the religion is
yeah.
Muslim. If it were something else, I mean, so I have no doubt about it. And interestingly, the religion also. I mean, the religion where we were born, it is also changing for the last couple of, especially
Yeah.
for the last couple of decades. So suppose that I'm also a 80s kid, 80s child. So when I was born, it was completely different for us. The experiences were quite different. But nowadays, I mean, especially for the last 20 years or 30 years maybe, it is getting more political, because of there are too many pressures, I mean, in the world politics. So here, I mean, it is like getting more and more conservative, and the nature is getting more and more conservative, and obviously, everywhere women are the worst victim. Everywhere, I mean, whenever it is a climate change, whenever it is anything, I mean, the women are the most, the first victim. So I think in my case, the film is about, it is also a personal journey. So I'm just trying to capture the relationship between me and my mother. So it is a daughter's journey to find out her mother, to find out the lost self of her mother, the mother who she used to, whom she used to know in her childhood. She was a very, she was a very liberated woman. She used to be a poet. She used to inspire her, I mean, her daughter, to be a painter. Uh, but now at this age, or in the last few, I mean, 1 decade, I am observing her as a completely different person. So after doing the Hajj, she has completely changed. And I'm not telling it that the Hajj has changed her, but yeah, it has a great impact on her. And I think it is the pressure. It is the international pressure, which is putting pressure in the national level also. So the politics are also changing. So that's how the people are also changing. So, but I'm not going to be judgmental about the religion. I'm not going to be judgmental about the world politics, because it would be very problematic area if, being a filmmaker, if we are being judgmental that how the politics is changing. I mean, it is, for me, I it is better to find the story through the personal relationship, personal stories. So for me, the personal story is more important here. The personal relationship is more important here. So that's it.
Yeah, and for Shazia,
Um,
like,
how religion is centric to Bebaak?
yeah,
Um, well, like I told you earlier, it is more about patriarchy and misogyny in religion than the existence of religion itself. So, if you think about women's place in society, like I was talking about Simone de Beauvoir earlier, the author, French author who's written The Second Sex. She has a great influence on me, so I'll speak about her. So, she said that women are not born women, women are made into women after
yeah,
being born, because there is already a fixed notion of how a woman should be,
mm,
depending on the religion she is born in, the society she is born in, the country, the economic status, depending on all of that, there is already a role fixed for her. So, of course, there are few who break through that, but a lot of women try to fit into that role which is already written for her. And men are the, I think she said something like, humanity is male, and women become the other gender, the second gender to it. That actually just sums up the entire problem, that everything, and religion functions like that. Women, I think religion empowers patriarchy and misogyny. So for me, and I agree with what Humaira was saying, that she was brought up as a Muslim, so she's telling the story of a Muslim family. But I was brought up as a Muslim too, and I was raised as a Muslim. So that is what I have seen. If I was brought up in a Hindu family, probably the family in the film would have been a Hindu family, because misogyny and patriarchy is just not a, patriarchy is an overall problem, but misogyny is not just a problem in Muslims. It's there in Hindus. It's there in Buddhism. A lot of people don't know that, but Buddhism has some very anti-women notions about how a woman's role in society is. So it had to do with criticism of religion, and I didn't want to shy away from it, because then what I'm trying to say, I'm going to be like, for whatever reason, I know the first person, the actor before Nawaz that we were trying to contact, and his agent read the script and he said that after you make this film, you'll have to go underground actually for safety.
Yeah.
So I told him that if you fear something, then there is never going to be any change in history. You just keep rolling into a ball of fear, right? If you think about fear, that's all you're going to think about it. So if you have an idea and if you're not putting it forward, then what is your role as an artist? So I don't know at this point where it, and like Bebaak has not released publicly, but everywhere that I have taken the film to, it has got like phenomenal response, and it has got really good response from Muslims who are believers. So it's not anti-religion per se, but religion is a human idea. People, whether you're a believer or you're an atheist or you're a rationalist, agnostic, whatever, you have to understand that religion is a human idea, and any human idea is liable for criticism. So if I am saying that this particular thing is a problem, like the problem of hijab, I think there are Western feminism has taught us that everything is about choice. And what the film is trying to say is that choice is a conditioning. So how is hijab a choice? Is what the film says. So if you're not allowing me to criticize that idea, then you are insecure about your religion, whether it's hijab or whether it could be triple talaq or whether it could be sati in Hinduism. Of course, sati doesn't exist now. So sati has a very common notion that everyone understands that sati was wrong to
Yeah.
kill, but it was in the time when a woman has no sense of existence if a husband is dead. So she would rather kill herself. But if you see, a lot hasn't changed even from then. But nobody educated, evolved in the modern society says that sati was never a choice. Even when women were actually jumping into the pyre, it was told it was out of choice women were doing it, but it was a conditioning. They were raised to believe that they are a nobody if a man is not there in their life. If the husband is dead, they are as good as dead, so they might as well commit suicide. But there are so many Western women who jump on the idea that hijab is a choice. Anything that I feel hijab is sexualization of female bodies. That you're putting hijab on a 5-year-old child, why are you doing that? Because you're saying that this body is attractive and it is better covered. And there are, well, of course, I'm saying from a rationalist point of view, but there are Islamic scholars like Samina Ali who have, like, they've written their books on how Islam anyway never has said to cover the bodies. It's a very confused idea because there are a lot of contradictions in Quran, if you say. Now, on a very complicated turf, right? There are a lot of contradiction in the book. So my simple understanding of religion is that now, Humaira was talking about climate change, right? Now, climate change is a actual threat problem that 21st century people, human race is facing. So we are trying to do different things to adapt to it, right? I mean,
Yeah.
even we are adapting our machines, our ACs, and our refrigerators to adapt to the climate change so that less resources is used and everything. So machines are also getting adapted to adapt to the whole mess of climate change. People are understanding, tackling it as a real problem. There are school children out on the street fighting this problem. So humans are actually adaptive creatures. So how do you give me a 1400-year-old book and tell me live your life according to this or it doesn't work? You
Mm.
understand? It cannot be the same rules cannot apply. That's why all my believing Muslim friends and my family members, they follow the religion according to their convenience. I am taking that convenience one step further. I am questioning the religion. I am questioning this idea in the religion, that why. And I think in everything, it's not just religious aspect, but like I was telling you, the role of women in society, you don't question it, that why are you treated as a woman who's supposed to be the secondary gender? And women are conditioned, not only men, because women are also carriers of patriarchy. They are the strongest. If you see how family system works, the mother and the grandfather and the aunts are actually the one that force a child or a female teenager into, the den of patriarchy, that this is your place. You can be an established production designer, you can be a great filmmaker, and you can be all of that, but if you don't get married, if you don't have children, the role that you're supposed to do, your life is incomplete. right? So all of that is pre-decided for us. How much we fight that and survive that, and all of that will not happen till we don't question it, and it has to come from the source that it is coming from. Unfortunately, that is religion, which people feel very emotional and sentiment about it, but it's from a very rationalist point of view, that why are you insecure about your religion that you do not want it to be questioned? Right, everything happens when a child is born. He asked, like a 5 6 year old kid asked 50 questions to their parents, and we keep telling the child, no, you're not supposed, like, initially the parents will answer the child, and then eventually it will be like, I'm your father, I'm telling you what is right. So the child keeps losing that sensibility of questioning something, because we are handling, so I talk about this Bergman pyramid, actually, that Bergman said there is a pyramid of authority that a child has to question. And right on top of that is the God and religion, then is the government, then is the family system, where your parents, your elders, your school, your colleges, they all tell you to be this submissive person. They have fixed a role for man, they have fixed a role for woman, and they tell you to follow this authority. The moment you challenge that, if a 10-year-old child tells to the father that, okay, you're my father and you know more than me, but why can't I think in a particular way? You're challenging the system. And the moment the family is a very oppressive system. Religion and government and everything else is coming later on. Your family is the first system that tells you to not question, because someone is elder than you and has more life experience than you, right?
So true.
Yeah.
So it became very important to question. Like, I couldn't have made Bebaak without questioning religion as well, because that is what I think religion really empowers. Misogyny in the society, it very very strongly thrives on hating women in a way that you cannot enter our religious space, which is like, if I cannot enter, then how do I have my faith in a god? That space is supposed to be his space, right? And then of course there are, you adapt to it, then you're like, okay, you don't want me to enter, I can have God in my heart and I can believe in him. But different people adapt to it differently. But yeah, questioning
Yeah.
religion became very important while making Bebaak, like that.
Um, you are actually provoked so many things in my head. I can ask thousands of questions now, but
Limited
I don't know
time.
how to be. I don't know how to be focused. But I really want to know. In the patriarch society, we are we are going through like side by side, the man and woman, and even we are learning the patriarchy from our mother that you just mentioned, and we really want to change it, and I can feel it while you are talking, being a woman, and also being a man. I can relate that, because somehow I read somewhere, like, in our heart there is a part that is female, that can think about the pain of our historical knowledge of being a woman. So is there any approach or any way to change the world, like, where there will be no, like, this kind of gender discrimination uh, through religion or social structure or government body or whatever? Is it feminism or whatever? I don't know. Like, being a woman and being a person and being a filmmaker, do you have anything, any solution, like, from your part you can share here? Like, we can start from Humaira. I really want to know that. Not as Arif, I want to know as like of the society.
Yeah, I think it's a basic question, right?
Yeah.
And as Shazia has made her film, I think she has done her job. So this is the way we can, we can do it. I mean, being filmmaker, being artist, we can only we can do it through our artwork. We can do it through our work, whatever we are doing, whatever we are thinking. So yeah,
But how can you fight with your family? As you mentioned,
see,
like,
it's not about fighting. I don't want to say I don't. I said it before. It's not fighting.
It's
It's not.
questioning.
Yeah, it's just questioning because it is too existential. And it is the nature of human being, that for her or his survival, they have to question.
Hmm.
So it's a very basic thing of your for your survival. So what I did, I mean, see, this film actually, my name of title of my film is Bilkis and Bilkis. I mean, as my surname is Bilkis and it's given by my mother, her name is also Bilkis. So I think it's already very empowered thought. I mean, it's already an empowering thought that my mom back in 80s, she kept my name according to her surname, which is really absurd in any other any other. I don't want to say religion, any other culture, because generally the women, the daughter's name are kept according to their father's name. So I'm really lucky and I'm happy that my mom kept my name according to her name. And that's why the name, the title of my film is very important for me. It is a driving force for me to, go on. And especially, while pitching this film in Europe, many producers, I mean, important producers, they told me that why this name is Bilkis and Bilkis. What does it mean? And because for them, it is very cultural thing. For them, Bilkis and Bilkis, it sounds like a biscuit company. And one of the producers told me that it sounds like a biscuit company. I mean, what does it mean? Then I told him, see, for you, it might not be very, interesting, but for me, it's a very important thing. So I can't change this name. So it is very important for me. So I think we have already started this thing. I mean, we are questioning it. We are questioning inside the family. And suppose that Shazia's film inspires me a lot. And I hope that it will inspire to the other women also. So it doesn't matter whether they are Muslims or Hindus or, it will inspire them. So this is the basic thing which we can do. We can start questioning. We can start our work, whatever we are doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that actually, because art becomes a very important tool to
Yeah,
raise your voice. And also, when you're challenging the family system, you don't have to be on war with your parents.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
It's you're challenging it on every, because I have seen my parents. My parents are, of course, they come from Bihar and they come from their own conservative background. But I've seen my father grown up with me. I've seen my mother evolve
yeah,
with me. With me, I
yeah,
mean with my siblings. I have two brothers and a younger sister. So with us, they have also grown up, because we were getting raised in Bombay, which was a little more progressive society than say what Bihar is. So I've seen them growing up. But of
yeah,
course, but they raised us in a way that they allowed us to challenge them, which is the only good way to parent, I feel. So the moment you undermine your child and raise them in a way that they don't open their mouth and they're scared of you, I think that's a failed parenting. Your child should be able to speak to you and challenge your thoughts, because that is how they will grow up and that is how you will grow up. Like last week, my mom and I had a big argument. Sorry, not last week. In the month of Ramzan, actually, after Ramzan or during Ramzan. So I raised the question much later during Ramzan. She got a call from my sisters-in-law, and my sister's married to a Gujarati Hindu. All my siblings are married to Hindus, actually. So my sisters-in-law had called her just asking about how Rosa is going on and how she's fasting and everything. And she was saying they were just having like general small talk. And then she asked about me, that if I'm fasting. And my mom said, no, she's working, so she's not fasting. Now I'm irreligious. I don't do anything related to religion. So I told her much later when we were fighting last week, and it just stayed in my head. I didn't respond to it that time, but it stayed in my head because I didn't want to. Now, my mom reads namaz 5 times a day. So it is very difficult for her to know that her daughter has nothing to do with religion. It's also a big step for her. So I generally don't make life more difficult for her. But when we were fighting, and I told her that why can't you accept me for who I am? I have seen my worldview and my politics is a certain way, and this is my opinion on religion. And I am okay with sharing a space with a person who's doing namaz 5 times a day. I don't have to see it. Oh, my mother is doing, so I cannot question it. I question it. I also think, oh wow, it would be great to have atheist parents. But no, this is the parent that I have, and they've done very good job at parenting. I mean, I feel like that. So why can't you accept that your daughter doesn't follow a religion? Like, why is that so difficult to a point that you're lying to somebody about me not fasting? Why can't you just be honest about it? And it is something that also shook her, and it also, but I'm just saying that it has to, that comfort zone has to be with parents, and even if it makes your parents uncomfortable, or what they say make you uncomfortable, you should still have that relationship, because things have to change at home. If it not, it will not change at home, it will not change in the society, and it will not change the government, and it will not change, there will be no real reform in religion as well. So it has to happen, like, at that level. Like, I feel that Christianity was in its dark ages, and it's in during the Middle Ages, in the 15th 16th century, where it was really struggling to reach out to people, and it was looked at as a very harsh religion subjugating people. And unfortunately, this is the dark ages for Islam, where every Muslim is just treated as a terrorist, because all the non-Muslims think, I mean, a large number of it, not all the Muslims, but at least in India, given the current situation, that we are looked at a suspicion. So if you're a moderate thinking, there's always this bar of good Muslim, bad Muslim. No one wants to know if someone becomes a terrorist, why they've become a terrorist, because there is no human understanding of Muslims. It's all
Yeah.
part of that. So things have to change at the family level for it to change at the government and society level.
Hmm. Shreya, can you read Taha Ismail's comment?
Yeah, I also wanted to take this question. You're absolutely right. What do you think about this idea that is it possible to be a great filmmaker and also a great Muslim at the same time? Like if somebody is not an atheist, not a rationalist, yeah, how is it possible?
Well, I don't know what is definition of a great Muslim. Of my understanding, as I don't follow the religion, but my understanding of Muslim, like my mom follows it or like my father follows it, is I won't say what all leftists say, actually, that Islam is a religion of peace. I think there's certain bit of conflict in all religion. So I will avoid using that. But I think being a Muslim means, it comes from the word Musalman, right? Which means Musallam. Sorry, my Urdu is not good. Means being, follower of religion in a, तुम्हारा ईमान ठीक होना चाहिए, basically, right?
Hmm.
So that iman, that has to come from inside. I don't know whether, how can you be great or non-great? How can you label that? I have no idea that what do you have to achieve in order to be a great Muslim, because I don't think humans have capacity to be a great human also. So labeling
Hmm.
yourself as a great Hindu, Muslim, or anything is a very complicated turf, or a end result, or a destination to go to, because humans are flawed beings. We are all flawed in our own way, and we can never become great. We can do great things in pockets, in different ways. We can be really kind to somebody. Kindness is the best way to be great, I feel. If you go and help someone, but if you're helping someone out of religion, which is my other problem with religion, that if your kindness and your morality comes from religion, then I think it's selfish.
Yeah. Or
So if I
there's a
want
I
voice
to
of
be
think
good
I
Salma.
to
think he wanted
someone,
I think he wanted to say perfect. I don't think great is the
perfect.
right word. I
Yeah.
mean, yeah,
But even as perfect, like, how do
yeah,
you become
perfect is,
a
yeah,
perfect of
yeah. It's
somebody, of something,
very
of
difficult.
like, yeah. It's,
Mm.
you don't have to, you shouldn't even aim to be something like that,
Yeah.
because you can be all of this in small things. Like, you can raise a wonderful child, and you can be a, you can be a great parent in parts. You can
Mm.
never become a great parent on the whole. So it's
No.
just, you can do small great things. Like, if I go and
Mm.
feed, like, COVID is going on, and there's so much of hunger and food issues in India right now, and I mean around the world. So if I go and help somebody, and I think at that moment, even talking about that, if I think, oh, I did something great, then I think I'm quite stupid. But somebody else will look at it like that. So I think to have your own goal as, I want to be a great something, I don't think there are great filmmakers also like that. You make really good films, but, or perfect films, or, but there's always, I don't know, it's just a very complicated turf to
Yeah.
label yourself that.
Yeah.
I want to put the
There's
light
another
on.
question, guys. I wanted to take that if you don't mind. There's somebody
No,
called
no, no. Go
Nasir.
ahead. Go ahead.
So there's
Go
somebody
ahead. Go
called
ahead.
Nasir who said, "I'm sorry for your experience in the mosque, but I don't think you see such treatment towards women in the mosque in the West. Not defending Islam, just that stating what I've seen here in the US and looking forward to watching the film." So yeah, that's a very interesting question actually, because the state of
Mm,
Muslims in the subcontinent, in the Middle East, and in the Western world is very, very different. Now, this whole thing, subcontinent follows Islam very regressively. Like when I went to Turkey, there are men and women standing next to each other and reading namaz. If you do that in a mosque in India, there'll be the men will create riots here, because of course, like I told you, they don't even let you enter. But it happens in the mosque in US, it happens in UK, it happens in Turkey. So that's another thing, that everyone has their own way of following the religion, right? And again, going back to the same argument, that it's a 1400-year-old book that everyone is adapting to their own way. There is
mm,
somebody, a terrorist also somewhere says, "Oh, I have read this book and it tells me to go and kill every kafir there is out there." And a person who follows it peacefully, like my mother, she is also, well, she's not very peaceful, but overall, she doesn't go and kill anyone. So she's peaceful like that. So, she also follows the same book. That means people are picking up their own interpretation of
Yeah.
what the book is saying, right? So
yeah.
it becomes, and that also questions that humans are violent beings, and it needs a very slight push for them to topple over. So Islam, which is followed in Turkey, is very different than Islam, which is followed here and in Bangladesh and Pakistan and in the US. But I think
Yeah.
US, because he said here, so I'm guessing he's from the US. But I think the Western world is doing a great deal of their undoing Islam, is what I feel. Because that is a diaspora problem, that when people go from the subcontinent or from the Middle East, they go to all these evolved societies or progressive societies like UK, US, Sweden, Europe, wherever, and they try to, because of Islamophobia, which is more prevalent in the Western world, they try to group together, and eventually it's happening that they're following a more, and it's not just about Islam, it's also about how Hinduism is followed. Like some of the most hardlining conservative Hindus are in the US, because they feel insecure because of being cornered as a minority. They try to hold on to everything that their religion is saying, and they stop questioning religion. So what is happening in the West, the direct repercussion has been here actually in the subcontinent, in the Middle East, because everyone has the entire left of politics, the leftists have gone to the side of seeing Islamophobia in the West. They really don't care about the Muslims in the subcontinent, in the Middle East. They don't question Islam here, but they question people who are anti-Islam there. You understand? It's
Mm,
a correlation actually, that if you corner people, they are going to hold on to whatever they have. And I really feel when we talk about Islamophobia, it's just about the Western Muslims. It's not talking about the regression of Muslims in Yemen and Syria and Iran. I mean, look at what has happened in Iran in last 40 years. Nobody talks Islamophobia in terms of that. For them, when you talk about Islamophobia, it is about one Muslim woman getting attacked in a New York subway.
Yeah.
So the Muslims of subcontinent and Middle East have become least important in the largest pockets that they are. And because of the Muslims in Western world have taken all the highlight. It's not that that's not an issue. Islamophobia in West is a huge problem. But the subcontinent Muslims have got completely, the Middle Eastern Muslims have got completely sidelined, because we fear talking, we fear questioning Islam. Because in one part of the world, Islamophobia is so rampant. So we feel like, you know what, it's already an oppressed community. That's why when my friends, the people I initially narrated Bebaak to, they said, it's an oppressed community. Why do you want to attack them? But a questioning is not attacking. That's the difference.
mm.
Sorry, I
Yeah.
went. I hope
So
that
No,
like,
no,
answers
no,
the
no.
question.
It's really clear. And actually, I have a couple of things to my list to discuss in this session for both of you. And one of the most important phenomenon for me, like the word gender, like how you both perceive the word, and also in Bangladesh, it's really we don't have like plenty of filmmakers from women filmmakers, so that's why it's really tough, and we don't have uh, incident which is out through Me Too movement, like it's happening in India. So I really want to have a contrast conversation between you two, like how you think the relationship between the man and woman in this industry, while you are working in this field. For Humaira, I know she's working alone. I mean, she do solo thing, she do camera, she do sound and editing and everything by herself, and sometimes when she's working she needs someone, she bring another woman. If I am not wrong. So, and Shazia, you have a completely opposite experience. Like you are working with plenty of men, dominated set, and every HOD most probably men, less women. So yeah, that is the premise of my question. And what do you think about the gender concept and also the Me Too movement? Yeah, in Bangladesh and in India.
I think it's too big, area to answer. And
But you
Shazia,
can
I
you
think
can
she can
start.
start because she has a large, huge experience to work with other, as HOD as a man and other departments whose men are mostly dominating. Because for me, as you told, it is very. I took this strategy for me because it is simple. It is easy for me. The way I want to work independently, it helps me, and because of a type of a market, because it's very smaller. Comparing to India, it's a smaller market. So when I really need someone specialized, and the kind of work I do, uh, it is really difficult job, to get a sound recordist, and
Mm,
suppose that a camera person. So that's why I feel comfortable to work on myself. And the kind of film, suppose that my last film was in the tea garden, so that was completely outside, and I you know I took the help of some other camera person who was men. But now it is inside the home and it is so personal. That's why I'm doing it on my own. There is no other choice. I
mm,
can't. It is impossible to employ someone else from outside. So I think this is the kind of film I do that makes the strategy for me, that with whom I want to work, how I want to work, and it's very difficult to compare with the other side of the world, like Shajia. So I think it's better if she talks about it.
but before going to Shazia, what do you think about the movement? Because
Yeah, yeah.
it's not a war.
No, no, no. I agree with it, and it happens largely in India. I know, and in the other,
Mm,
other side of the world. But in Bangladesh, I really, you maybe, agree with me that in Bangladesh we didn't heard much about it, but it doesn't mean we don't have this kind of issues, because
mm,
we all have this kind of experience in our academia, in our institutes, like the other places, like if we know, we heard it from the other filmmakers, other women filmmakers who went to work with other directors, the male directors. How did they exploit them? We know it, we know their experiences. But during this movement, I really heard anything from them. So I
mm,
think it's again about our culture, that we really like to suppress ourselves. We have a face loss issue. We don't want to, get outside. Really, we want to get outside. Uh, it is another problem. So, and I can mention one of my experiences regarding this Me Too. I have one of my characters, and now she's one of my good friends also. She's from the transgender community, and her name is Shishir Tasnova Anand. So she was she had the complaint. She had this Me Too complaint against a publisher who used to be who is a very strong and dominating person. We all know him. But uh, when she did it, I mean, before doing it, she didn't have enough courage to write about him, write against him. And on top of that, she's a transgender. That's another issue. I mean, she's completely other. Women's are other, and she's another other. So when during writing it, I mean, she was again and again asking me that. Appa, I mean, should I write it? Should I do it? Then I gave her courage that yes, you should do it, because it happened with you, and if you don't write it, I mean, you will lose it. I mean, because everywhere people are writing about it, women are writing about it, they're raising their voice about it. So why don't you? So then she did it, and it had a huge impact on the Facebook. And that publisher, she had to face a huge issues. We all know about it. So I think it's just the courage of which we don't have, and when we need it, then we just we just don't feel to express ourselves. So I really don't know how to deal with it.
Yeah. Shazia.
Talking about being a woman in Indian film industry is interesting. I actually, do you guys mind? I just want to shut the window because it started raining really heavy and I can't hear
Go ahead.
properly. Just 2 seconds.
Go ahead. Go ahead. Hey, you two know each other, Humaira and Shreya.
Yeah, I think I know her. I think I saw her somewhere.
We have had many parties.
Yeah.
What did I miss?
No, they
Actually,
know each other.
I have been known her for a long time, but the way Arif is introducing, me with her, it is.
And I know everyone. Yeah.
So yeah.
Okay.
So at the time I joined the industry, actually there were very few women. Like in the crew of say 100 people, there would be like 8 or 10 girls in the crew. So you see, anyway, film industry is a reflection of the world outside, right? So the world is a boys' club, and so is the film industry. So you're used to that distinction between men and the other gender. We are the other gender. So as an assistant, it was much worse because you everything works in an hierarchy in the film industry. So as a HOD, it has not been as much of a problem as an assistant. Of course, the sort of harassment or treatment of a girl. There are very assigned roles of what even in production design, like construction, supervising construction becomes a man's job, propping becomes a woman's job. So everything is gendered, very systematically gendered actually.
Yeah.
So that way I remember, but as during like I was just about to say the name of the project and then I realized I shouldn't say that. During one of my early project as an HOD, I we were doing pre-production for 6 months actually, and the DP, of course, the DP was a male, and he just wouldn't look at me. Like, DP and production designers are very close associates, more than the director and production designer. And he just wouldn't even look at me and talk because he was this fancy big DOP, and I had accidentally got a big film. So throughout Recce, he would just talk to the director, even for things like color and mood and tone, and he would just not look at me and talk. And sometimes with like, okay, you're subhuman, but okay, I'll do a favor and look in your direction. It was like that. And after the first 3-4 days of the shoot, when our setup started happening and he started liking the design, the attitude changed, and so much. And we ended up becoming like good friends later on. And I also told him that, dude, this did it happen because I'm a woman? He's like, no, not at all. And I believe in gender equality, though feminism is a very distorted conversation in India, I feel. because we
Yeah.
are so far behind all the evolved conversation about feminism that whatever, like, you throw a piece of biscuit at the dog, it's like that given at women. Oh, we did this much, so you should be happy because they rule the world and we are, like, looking for attention. It's just that. So if, even like, then it's very very apparent that you're a girl when you're a woman when you're working in the film industry. But I think it would not be any different than it is outside. It's probably little better here than compared to the outside world, because there are slightly more progressive people. Some directors are better than the other directors. It has been great to work with Anurag, because the best thing about working with Anurag is he doesn't have that gender segregation in his head, that because she's a woman she cannot do it. In fact, he gives opportunity to a lot of young people, and there are, first time in his team, more than 50% of the crew would be women. And even that's not a conscious decision, it just happens because he doesn't really treat as like, oh, she's a woman, I'll hire her for this, oh, he's a man. So he doesn't have that thing in his head, which works in our favor, because he doesn't believe, like most of the directors or producers, that she's a woman and she's not capable of this job.
Hmm.
So, but there is a very strong distinction, and of course, pay wise, it's a long shot. Like, I think as a production designer, we do get pay very highly in Indian films. But I remember that there is a project I was doing a few years ago where a DOP who was far less experienced than me got 5 times money than what I got for the. Generally,
Hmm.
hierarchy wise, DOPs do get a certain amount more than production designers, but not 5 times more. So the pay
Hmm.
difference is too much. Like, you can't even talk about, the problem. It's like that big. Because, men actually run houses and we just go on set to do time pass. We don't really need money. We are just going to earn some token money to buy clothes and shoes, you know.
Bigger.
Sorry, that's sarcastic for people who don't
Yeah.
understand sarcasm.
It's
Yeah.
common everywhere, I think.
Yeah.
And
So,
about
Yeah.
pre Me Too and after Me Too, did you see any change?
well, I have a bit of a different opinion on Me Too movement. My film got involved in a Me Too movement. I will not talk much about it because there's too much about it in the media. But somebody who was related to my producer, very, very far distant association, because of him, my film got banned in a festival. And I think my opinion on Me Too is what Margaret Atwood, the woman, the author who's written The Handmaid's Tale, she said it beautifully, actually, that Me Too is a reflection of a broken judicial system. That a society that
Hmm.
does not have justice is where a woman is forced to have that. Or there are some men also who came out and spoke during Me Too movement. So I'm not just saying it was for women, but largely it was for women, that they felt compelled to speak on the internet and on social media because there was no way that anyone else was hearing them. So it's just a reflection of a broken law and order, that, and that also brings us to the treatment of women for 10,000 years, that because the gender is othered, there is no way for them to get to have a voice anywhere else. So social media became a platform to talk about it. It's not the best way to, it becomes a mob justice on internet. It's not
Yeah.
the best way to get it done, but there was women who did it. It's because they had no other way around it. So it's a broken system. Of course, in India, it happened in a way that it became a noise, it became a chaos, and it, like everything happens in India. I'm
Yeah.
very honest about the Indian society. Everything happens like that. Everything becomes a khichdi. Everything, there is no clarity. Like, in when it happened in Hollywood, there were people who were, perpetrators, and they were punished in a certain way, and but India, it just became like there were people talking about the relationship. Now you don't know whether in a relationship it was happening, whether that falls into the Me Too category or not. So it was a complete chaos. So while it seemed like it was the right way to move forward, it that movement died in India, and the movement died in the West because it's not the right way to get your voices heard. It has to be, the system has to work in place, that a woman is wronged, she has to go to a place to be heard. It cannot be social media. It cannot be. I know a friend of mine who was Me Too'd, and there was absolutely no basis ever, there was nothing found out, but I also know perpetrators who were called out and they were like that. So,
Mm.
you know, it's like you don't know who's wo गेहूं के साथ. There's a Hindi. No, I sorry, I just forgot. I shouldn't say in Hindi, but there is a saying that with wheat, the whole thing gets messed up. The covering of the wheat as well. Okay,
Mm.
so the covering of the wheat were the other people who got into the casualty of the entire thing. But it talks about how the system is broken. And it talks about, I think the core of the Me Too movement is that women are still in 21st century, a second gender. And for everyone, for all of us involved, we have patriarchy so ingrained at us that every week I have to remind myself that I am doing this because I am patriarchal as well. None of us are spared.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Arif, can we take a
Sh-
question?
Yeah, sure, sure, sure.
There's a filmmaker from Pakistan. She's asking about what do you think we in South Asia, I mean South Asian filmmakers lack in terms of telling our local stories? What are our biggest challenges? How do we face them? And my second question is, what would be your suggestion for young women filmmakers based on your experience and considering the change in technology? Two questions.
Two questions. Okay. So, what do you
Yeah.
think? What the biggest
I
challenges?
think the second question is more relevant to Humaira, and the first part is more relevant to Sajia. Yeah.
Okay,
Okay.
I'll answer the first one. Like in terms
Yeah.
of story, so I think we are somewhere stuck in the rut of telling happy stories. Like every Bollywood film wants to, mainstream film wants to have this happy ending, and because film is looked as a way to escape, right? So it's become
Mm.
entertainment, and that same thing which has been happening for so many years, that it's an entertainment. But entertainment doesn't mean something that makes you laugh. I mean, none of the mainstream Hindi film makes me laugh, so it is not the right understanding of comedy also. But I'm saying that everything is just about this really romantic comedy zone that Bollywood has adapted. Sorry, I'm not so familiar with Pakistani films to comment on that. I've just seen a couple of them. But in terms of Bollywood, there is so much. Everything is about, oh, it's an escape for 2 hours. Let's give people a good time. But entertainment is also engagement. Entertainment is also seeing the reality of life in front of you and saying, oh, this is my story. That's also engaging. That's also entertaining. So the film has a very strong role to play in society, and what Bollywood has done is limited it to a box of saying that we need to distract people for those 2 hours, because it's not a distraction. Films aren't a distraction; it's a part of your existence. Like I said in the initial thing, that as an artist, it has to make sense of your existence, and I don't mean that you have to make serious films for that. I mean, Wes Anderson has made really funny films, and he's showed us some of the deepest exploration of human life, right? So I think that's what our films in the subcontinent is lacking: understanding of what cinema can do and the power of cinema. But things are changing. Like, at least in India, it is, there are small indie films which are breaking through, and for a long time now, not like recently. It's changing the society. And I disagree with Godard. Actually said that films don't have capacity to change society. I strongly disagree with that, because I have seen myself evolving with films, and the moment one human mind is evolved, the society involves collectively, right? Every small, like, so many things. We watch a film, like there was this film called the red thin line the thin red line the thin red
Mm.
line, which was about the war and struggles of the army.
Yeah.
I had a very unidimensional idea of army, because I am very anti-war and anti-violence. So I look at army men very, like, this was 5 years ago, but as you know, they are men with guns, and a man with a gun is a man with a gun. That's it. But the thin red line made me look at the humanism of even a person who's killing somebody else. And that is the
Mm.
power of cinema that we all have to understand. It changes society. So anyone who says it doesn't is undermining films.
The next one.
Humaira.
I think as she's from Pakistan, and Pakistan has also the same kind of condition. It's not very and the social conditions are not very different. And I have experience with working with a Pakistani director, Sharmin Nobayat Chinoy, and we did a very long documentary, the feature-length documentary on the women peacekeepers. And she did it in Bangladesh because in Bangladeshi women peacekeepers, the women are doing really good. So I had this experience to work with her and with her team, and they're really super professional. And she won Oscars for two times in documentary section. So yeah, she's a big, she's a big thing in Pakistan, I think. But though she doesn't stay there, so I think she can. But she has her office in Pakistan in Karachi. So Laila can, I really don't know her choice, so she can think about it, because they have this kind of people over there in Pakistan also. And in fiction, I would say it is really inspiring, the kind of fiction I saw in the last few years Pakistan is doing. Suppose that the Khuda Ke Liye, I think Arif, you have seen it, or you have also seen it, yeah. And there is also in the independent film scenario, I saw one of their independent film, which is on Nusrat Fateh Ali Khan. This is a really interesting film, really interestingly made. The title of the film is When Nusrat Has Left His Home. The director, I just forgot the name. Yeah, I forgot the name of this director, and he made it just after he left. He passed away. So it's really interesting. So I think there are this kind of scenario where you have to find out. Laila, I'm telling you, you have to find out your own way. Such as you're talking about local stories. So you have plenty of local stories. So you have to find it out, and you have to find your own path that in which you believe. And technology is really changing. It's changing, every day. It's kind of every day it's changing. But you have to stick. Suppose that the kind of technology I use, I know I can use it for 2 years, because I buy my own camera. I buy my own sound equipment. So for camera especially, I know that the maximum use of my camera is 2 years. After 2 years, I have to change my technology. I can't stick on my, the old camera. So technology will be changing, but technology is not the film. So technology is not the medium, right? So you have to think what you want to say, what you want to tell to the world. So if the content is, strong, then it will come out, definitely.
Lovely answer.
Yep. Lovely answer. Yeah, I love it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a very purposive answer, because.
But sometimes consider me as your independent cinematographer, because during documentary shooting I do my own camera, so you can take me.
Yeah, sure. And I'm also writing my feature. Fiction. So
Yeah.
I definitely will need your help.
Yeah.
And Shazia also.
And me too.
Shazia also. Why not Shazia? Because I
Why
like
not?
design.
All of you are earning well. I am a budding one. So I need it.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and so many things to cover and ask, but I think we have to organize another session in another day, because
It's been 2 hours 15 minutes, by the way.
Yeah, more than 2 hours. And I know Shazia and Humaira both are like organically, they maintain their life. Definitely they had their dinner like 7:30, right?
No,
I haven't. I haven't had dinner.
No. And yeah, so then we should wrap it up, like for today. Yeah, but it was really like insightful and interesting conversation. Don't blame me, because
one funny thing I want to conclude with, that
Yeah,
before
sure.
coming to this meeting, I just went to my parents to let them know that I'm busy. I'll be busy for the next 2 hours. Then I told them I'm going to a meeting, and then my father was very worried because of the corona situation. And also we have a law at home that you can't go home, you can't go outside after after dark and blah blah blah. I have to fight. So he said he was very worried. Where are you going? I said, no, I'm going to my room. It's online. And they
That's
said,
so
oh,
innocent.
it's really good. It's online. So it's funny. And I was laughing while listening to Shazia that, yes, our parents are also, evolving with us.
Mm.
Absolutely.
So before the wrapping, I have one questions to both of you. Like, what's coming next from your, your
Yeah.
plate for us? Yeah, from Shazia to
Shazia,
Um,
Humaira.
the feature film that you mentioned that you want to
yeah.
do.
I'm actually, when I was in LA with, in the lab with Arif, that's where we met. So I met somebody from an agency, and the person, so I went with one script, which is called Blood Circle, but they heard the theme of the film and everything, and their agent offered me a book, like a book
Yeah.
adaptation. So it's a book written by an Indian American author. I can't say the name of the book, but that's I'm working on that adaptation right now. And generally, actually, I have like 5 films to make right now, but this book is everything that I want to make. It
Okay.
talks about this Muslim guy who struggles. Well, I can't say anything about the details, so I'll just leave it at
Yeah.
that. But thematically, it talks a lot about violence and human rights of minorities in countries, and so it's very
Mm.
close to my heart. And the themes that I was tackling in the stories I was writing, so that's why I'm working on the book right now.
So you're writing and trying to direct it.
Writing and directing. Yeah.
And
Okay.
don't tell anything about our project. Okay.
No, no. I'm also making a film with Arif, by the way. He's a producer.
Con- Congratulations.
Thank you. Very
It's
excited about that. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And Humaira.
Oh, I am doing my Bilkis and Bilkis, and it's stuck. It's stuck because the Hajj is cancelled
Mm.
this year. So we were supposed to go to the Hajj, and that was, my climax actually. So we
Mm.
missed it this year, and I really don't know. I think I have to wait for it. And no matter, I mean, as it is so personal and things are, changing so rapidly because of this Corona issue. So I will wait, and my co-producer is also very patient person, so he will also wait, so there is no issue with it. And in between I have written two short stories, short fiction for fiction, so that I'm planning, I'm looking forward to it. And another feature also I'm planning to write, so that's it.
Lovely.
Nice.
Yeah.
All the best to
Yeah.
both of you. All of you.
Thank
Wonderful.
you. But it was a lovely meeting. I mean, it was a lovely chat, and it's
Same
very
here.
inspiring.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Same here. I would
And
love to see
today,
your film, Bilkis, whenever it's
Sure,
ready. I would
sure,
love to actually watch
sure,
the. And good
sure.
luck
yeah,
for it.
please,
I think it's a very tough film to make. So
and please send her Bagania, the first documentary you made.
yeah.
Yeah. Uh, I'm talking. I'm asking Bilkis. Send the first documentary you made, Bagania.
Okay. Oh, last one was it was the tea plantation workers, but it is a
Mm.
kind of very observational film. It's not like the Verita kind of, I mean, question.
Hmm.
It's not like that. So I spent time over there, and I used to go there for the last 10 years.
Oh
And
wow.
then I have actually developed it is a very nice relationship with them. So I go
Mm.
there, and they all are migrants, people from the different parts of India.
Hmm.
So mostly Bihar, UP, and Odisha. There are different places, Jharkhand. So
Mm.
all they came in the British period.
Hmm.
So they all came here as a bonded labor. So they have been living here for the last more than 150 years. So it is a wonderful place, full of exploitation though,
Hmm.
but it is a nice place, nice people. So I spend time over there, and it's kind of my second home. So
Hmm.
whenever I feel lack of peace, I just go there and I stay there.
Where?
So it is in the Sri Bengal, in the northeast. part of our
Yeah. It's beautiful.
eastern part.
It's beautiful.
Yeah. So it's just an observational film on them, on the three characters over there, and yeah. Sometimes I
there
can
was
share it with you, so you can
and
watch it.
there was another one, मैंने दिल्ली नहीं देखा, right?
Oh, that's the thing. That's a short film.
Oh.
I was in Delhi. I was studying in Delhi in the creative documentary, and there I made this film. I am yet to see Delhi. मैंने दिल्ली नहीं देखा. And I I said it after 1 year spending in Delhi.
I love the title. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
मैंने बॉम्बे नहीं देखा, actually देखा.
मैंने ढाका
नहीं देखा है.
हाँ, मैंने देखा है. I wish
So,
things
yeah.
were much better in the subcontinent and I could just go to Pakistan and Bangladesh.
Yeah.
And wherever, like, you know. with all the-
Definitely will come to Bangladesh. Definitely.
Yeah, you are
Yeah,
most
we'll come to
welcome here,
Bangladesh.
so
Yeah.
you can come.
Yeah.
Um,
And
That's what they say every time.
Yeah, we
And,
should go together.
Yeah, thank you
Yeah, we
for
should
saying
go
that. Now it's on record, Shazia. Yeah.
and I'm
Arif, you
sorry
should say
to my-
sorry to all the audience because they were so
Yeah, all the
many
audience,
comments
because
and
today
questions.
this is the first time I couldn't manage the time to read all the comments, but I'm
Yeah.
so grateful people are watching our show, and it's really interesting. Slowly our industry is growing, and we want to learn the certain process of proper professional practice. And today I think Shazia and Humaira, they both enlighten our audience really in a great way. And I hope to organize more specific session, technical session. I had a conversation with Humaira. Maybe we'll organize some session about documentary filmmaking, and also to Shazia we'll organize something more like for production design, and it will be more practical. Yeah, because we don't have this particular idea. We need to introduce that more and more for the filmmaking journey. Yeah, and I'm really looking forward to that, and I know you will never say no to me. Yeah, yes, I'm privileged, and thank you, Shreya. Yeah,
Yes, thank you, Shreya, so much.
If you want to say any last word to this.
No, you can just tell the audience about our next session with Swapnil.
Oh yeah,
Shreya
we
is
have.
Shreya is very purposive. She's just thinking about the next session.
Yeah, we have two more sessions. One already confirmed, but I can't tell the date now. It's with the DOP of Sacred Games, Shotnil, and another one also worked in Bebaak as a colorist. So yeah, like when we fix everything, we'll let people know.
Yeah, I just wanted to say a quick thank you to everyone who's commented, because we didn't manage to take all the questions
Yeah.
and compliments.
Yes.
Thank you there was some 700 people who watched Bebaak in last 6-7 hours. So
Oh my
thank you so much.
God.
Yeah, and people have also commented and sent me message on Facebook, and there are messages here. Thank you so much. I feel very humbled by all of that, and sorry we couldn't take all the questions, but I'll come to Bangladesh. I'll come to Dhaka and we'll do a live session. When world
Yes.
will get normal and we can all sit in one seminar room and do an actual live Q&A, maybe we'll do that.
Sure.
When will that happen?
Yeah.
Looking
Yeah.
forward to it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you so
Thank you.
much.
Bye.
Bye.
Virtual hug. Bye.
Virtual hug.
Like this.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Take care.
Bye.
Okay.
Take care.
Take
Bye.
care.